Welcome to the Secure the Perimeter podcast.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining the Secure the Perimeter podcast. Today's episode, we're going to talk about building teams. When we're talking about building teams, we're talking about building actual teams. I don't mean teams around your office, just teams around, but we're also talking about your family. We're talking about teams that are indestructible. This is a very hot topic these days because so many people are looking for unity in their teams. Whether it's people they're working with, people that they work with while in construction, in the office, in the military, in law enforcement. And when you're building your family, a lot of these tactics pertain to building your family. But families obviously go a lot more deep. And so today we're going to focus on building teams because there is so much division in the world today. I don't go into politics. I don't like politics. I'll just say that, and that's all I'm going to say. But I will say that it's critical and it's vital that we build teams and we build the people and lift people up around us instead of tearing them down and finding every fault about them. I feel like as a society, we're all going the wrong way. So we're going to talk about building teams today and why that's important in your company, in your organization, at home, and why it's important to build the people up around you. This pertains to everybody, whether you are a supervisor, whether you're a leader, whether you're in charge, or whether you're not in charge and you're just part of a team. This will also pertain to you because it's vital that you get team effort. And so many people that talk about building teams don't talk about the people who are subordinate under someone else who's in charge. Just because someone else is in charge doesn't mean you can't help develop that team. And so many people, and we see this all the time, want to rant and rave about the guy who's in charge and why the guy in charge is making all the mistakes. Well, quite frankly, if you want to make a difference, then either be in charge or get out of the way. One motto we used in the Marine Corps was lead, follow, or get out of the way. You have to lead, you have to follow, or you have to get out of the way. And part of being part of a team is you have to follow. And I always tell people when I'm developing new leaders, when I did this in the Marine Corps, when I developed new platoon sergeants, new squad leaders, new team leaders, I would always say you have to be a good follower before you could be a good leader. No one who leads that leads well has not been a follower, if that makes sense at all, because you have to serve people in some capacity. So let's get right into it. The thing that you want to do, the three major things you want to do when you're building a team is OES, observe, evaluate, and summarize. What do I mean by observe? Anytime I was assigned to a new platoon of Marines, I would not speak for at least 3 to 5 weeks. I would only say enough to get my job done, but I wouldn't really give any directive orders. I wouldn't really give more direction than was necessary to get the job done. What do I mean by that? I basically would be very quiet and very observant because I wanted to learn more about the people who I was working with. I wanted to understand their fundamental differences. I wanted to understand their strengths, their weaknesses. I wanted to understand who those were that were productive, those who were slackers, those who were dismissive. And I wanted to understand them at a character level, not just a fundamental level of do they get the work done, but I wanted to understand them from a character level. I wanted to understand what made them who they were, how they operated, how they thought. And so I would be very quiet and observant. Too many people do not observe their team. This is one of the biggest flaws I see in team development. People don't observe. They just make rash decisions and hasty assumptions. It's the worst thing you can do. And it gets your team firing all out of sync because you're not putting the people in the right place for their capacity. And I'll get into that in a minute. But you want to observe your team. You want to understand who they are, how they operate, how they think, and you don't want to say much. Give them a chance to make a mistake. People make mistakes all the time. Also, more important than giving them a chance to make a mistake, give them a chance to recover from that mistake without your input. Everyone's got an opinion, and we all know about opinions. Opinions are not valuable if you're not given a chance for that person to recover from the mistake they make. This is vital. And look, team building is so essential these days because our world is becoming more complicated, more moving parts, more things we have to do. Families are less connected, less involved, and it's time to start building teams. Build your family. So, observe, evaluate, summarize. Let's get into evaluate. What are we evaluating? Like I just said, I evaluate people from a fundamental level and from a character level. I want to know how they operate at the surface, how they handle a little bit of stress, how they handle a situation. Things come at us all day long. If you're a business owner, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have challenges all the time, different flavors of challenges. If you have a family, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have challenges. You have different levels of challenges, different flavors of challenges. So you want to evaluate. You want to understand who they are at the surface level, and you want to understand them from a character level. How do they process information? How do they deal with stress? And then you want to start dissecting their pros and cons. Excuse me. Understand them. You want to understand their strengths and weaknesses. You want to understand, where they're, better suited, right? So, getting into that, you want to evaluate them. And so, I would spend a lot of time getting to know someone. I would evaluate them. Once I fully understood the people, I would summarize. And when I'm talking about summarizing, I'm talking about writing the information down. List out all their pros and cons. Things you like about them, things you don't like about them. Things that they do well, things that they don't do well. And try not to mix your emotion too much into that part. Listen, if somebody's good at what they do, whether you like them or not, you have to put that down. If somebody is bad and you really like them, put it down. It doesn't matter. You have to be unemotional about this. You have to be very business-oriented as it pertains to listing someone's pros and cons. List their strengths and weaknesses, okay? Strengths and weaknesses are different than pros and cons. Very different. What I mean by that is the pros and cons are things that they're naturally good at, things they're not naturally good at. Their strengths and weaknesses are things that they have developed and become stronger in doing. And you'll see development if you watch and listen enough in that 3 to 5 week period. You're going to see people getting stronger. You're going to see people getting weaker. Okay? It's just everyone is a moving target. Everyone is constantly changing, constantly evolving. And so you want to summarize. The most important thing that you can do when you're developing your team is encourage them and uplift them. Now when you're speaking, it's been the 3 to 5 weeks, you're over the discovery phase. Now you want to start speaking. What do you say when you start speaking? You start putting people in the right position for their capacity. I don't care if you're running a construction company, you're building, a conglomerate marketing company, or you're part of a financial firm, or you're building teams because you're in the military and you're a door kicker. You fundamentally have to build up your team. And so here's one of the biggest flaws I see, as I talked about earlier. Instead of encouraging people and uplifting people, so many people are opinionated and tear down the team or find every fault about a person. If you go the other way and you invert that whole tactic and you start building people up and encouraging them, you start letting them see the light in themselves and their capabilities and their strengths and it starts to build them up and give them more confidence. Confidence is something a lot of people lack. Once you start establishing someone's confidence, you turn them into very high productive people. Find all of the strengths and the weaknesses, and once you identify those weaknesses, go after those weaknesses with development. Train them. Whatever industry you're in, whatever job you do. And again, I'm talking not just to the leaders, but I'm also talking to the team members. Just because you're not in charge of that business, that job, that position, it doesn't mean you can't develop those around you. Find people around you and encourage them and give them things to do that maybe they can pick up the performance a little bit. Some people may get offended by this, and that's okay. But you have to invest yourself into the people who are receptive to development and improvement. And so you want to encourage people, hey man, I saw you do this a certain way. I would encourage you to do this. Maybe this might help you a little bit, put some pep back in your step, and get some more effectiveness out of your day. Now, obviously, you don't want to take advice from people who don't know, but if you're one of those people who practice team building and development and you want to improve and everyone's after, trying to find a more productive you during your day, then this is for you. And this is to help you build that team and establish that rapport with your team. So just say I'm not a leader of my section that I'm part of. I'm not a leader in the job or capacity that I'm currently in, but I'm developing those around me. I want to observe people the same exact way. I want to identify their strengths and their weaknesses, and I want to encourage them and build them up. And so I want to encourage them to, be positive and say, hey, I know you fouled the ball today in that meeting, but let me make some small recommendations to potentially help you improve. This will go a long way with people because instead of tearing them down and insulting them and telling them everything that they did wrong, that's so obvious, right? You're actually building them up, and you're going to get a lot more reception from people, and they're going to want to participate, and they're going to want to collaborate a lot more with you when you're building them up to say, you know what, hey, man, you didn't do that exactly right, or you didn't do that exactly well, but the reality is you did a pretty good job. You didn't foul the ball entirely, or you know what, this is a better way to go, and here's why. And explain yourself. People like constructive criticism, but with explanation. Because when I just criticize people, hey, you didn't do a good job, and then I stop there, and I don't explain myself, you're not really doing anything. You're not giving them any substance. And so it may be falling on deaf ears. So if you want to build a high-performance team, and you want to have people be as productive and efficient as possible, you have to build them and you have to encourage them. And as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, you want to train your team. Whatever industry you're in, whatever job you do, law enforcement, military, financial, marketing, flowers, you want to train your team. So you want to send them to the training that they need. Look, if they're lacking in leadership, send them to leadership training. There's all kinds of online courses. There's all kinds of references and resources online. There's all these AI tools that you can utilize to find, the things that will build them up and make them stronger and better, right? But aside from the people who tear people down and don't build them up, one of the other largest mistakes I see is without doing these things and evaluating the right way and listening and observing, people put team members and those around them in the wrong position for their capacity. I have made this mistake so many times in my past. Running my own company, I have had the people in the wrong role, doing the wrong thing. And when I've made that adjustment and put them in the right position for their capacity, now they're firing on all cylinders. Now they're more efficient, they're a lot more effective, and they're a lot more productive because they're getting the job done and they're doing it because they enjoy what they do. If you've got somebody in the wrong position, in the wrong capacity, you're not going to be very productive as a team. Again, whether you're doing road construction, it doesn't matter. If you got a guy that you put on a backhoe that's never ran a backhoe before, but he's a great architect, you probably got him in the wrong capacity. So you want to put him in the right capacity. So I hope this was encouraging for you. I hope this helps you understand the fundamentals of building a team. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Secure the Perimeter.